What's up, world? Welcome back to Cancel Thoughts. It's your boy Better Days here. The Diddler has finally been sentenced to 4 years in federal prison, and I got a video that kind of goes over the entire scenario that I want to show you guys really quickly. Before I get into it though, guys, if I earn you guys a subscription by the end of this video, do me a solid and like the video and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a couple of seconds. With that being said, let's get right into it.
The sentencing of Sean Diddy Combs, a judge handing down a 4-year sentence for the rap mogul convicted on 2 prostitution-related charges. ABC News chief investigative correspondent Aaron Katersky was there and has more on the emotional moments in the courtroom, Aaron, when Combs pleaded for mercy from the judge.
He did, Janae, and he really wanted to be tasting freedom right now, but the judge refused to release him. Now, as lawyers tell us the judge got it wrong, they're preparing to appeal.
Pleading for mercy is funny because I think this was mercy. When you take into account that this man was facing life in prison, to only be getting 4 years, especially with them counting in the time that you've already served.
What are you complaining about?
It means you're really only going to end up serving like 3 years in federal prison because you're going to be able to get out early on good behavior or whatever. I think this was mercy. That you guys thought that he was going to just get off scot-free and not do any time in prison whatsoever is so crazy to me, and that you guys are going to be appealing it, to me just shows how completely deluded some people are, especially when it comes to these famous people who have money.
This morning, Sean Combs is behind bars, sentenced to 4 years in prison for transporting women and male escorts across state lines for prostitution.
He can't be stopped now, 'cause it's bad boy for life.
Combs begged for mercy, telling the judge, "I know that I've learned my lesson." But the judge rejected his plea, saying the sentence needed to send a message to abusers and victims alike that exploitation and violence against women is met with real accountability.
It did not send that message, okay? All it just told every one of those abusers or whatever is that, well, I can do some of these things and I'm only going to get 4 or 5 years, which some of those people are willing to do. They're willing to take that chance to be able to get their rocks off or whatever, which
is totally insane.
I personally would have liked to have seen him get at least 10 years. Like a decade would have let people know, oh, this is probably not something we will ever want to do, but it is what it is.
It's clear from the judge's remarks that the sentence was driven by the conduct the jury rejected.
Combs was acquitted of sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy, but federal prosecutors argued he deserved 11 years in prison because he inflicted life-altering violence on women. And they said that physical abuse is on video, pointing to this 2016 hotel surveillance footage depicting Combs attacking Cassie Ventura. How could the judge be blind to that and not punish him for the sum total of his conduct?
I don't necessarily agree with them even showing that, because that case has already been settled and it has nothing to do with this case in particular. Cassie already got her $50 million payoff or whatever. I don't necessarily see why you guys are even bringing this up, and I personally think that Cassie should have been right there next to him, because the reports that we've been told was that Cassie was also one of the people who was orchestrating the entire freak off situation. So when you try to start like charging Sean Combs with some of this sex trafficking stuff, why is she not also sitting there right next to him taking the exact same charges? I don't necessarily like that whatsoever.
Well, the judge was allowed to take that into consideration, but what was clear from the judge's remarks was that he was going way beyond that.
Combs said, "I have been humbled and broken to my core," before apologizing to his children and tearfully telling his mother, "You raised me better." Is Sean Combs a changed man? You've been with him so long through this entire year-long prosecution.
I can say from the bottom of my heart, more than I think anybody else truly on this team can say, that he is a changed man.
How do you?
She's paid to say that. I don't think Diddy learned anything from this entire scenario. All he learned is he needs to keep his game a little bit tighter, okay? He needs to be a little bit more cautious in some of the things that he does, and he needs to make sure he stays out of the public eye as much as possible.
Ain't nothing wrong getting older, but if you 55 and you got 1,000 bottles of baby oil in the house, clearly, can't stop, won't stop.
If he in any way, shape, or form can move on from this situation and still keep earning money, I think he's going to go right back to the behaviors that ended him in this situation to begin with.
The defense played an 11-minute documentary-style video showing Combs as a doting father and a philanthropist. The judge acknowledged his impressive career and commendable charity work, but imposed the 4-year sentence, saying a history of good works can't wash away the record in this case, which showed that you abused the power and control that you had over the lives of women you professed to love dearly.
Defense attorneys told us they would appeal Combs's conviction, try to get his sentence reduced. And we heard from one of the jurors who told us Combs got off easy.
I find it funny that they always highlight the wrongful doings that happen to women, which I'm not necessarily saying is a bad thing, but then they completely ignore some of the bad things that happen to any men that were involved in this. Because from what we were told in earlier reports, there were a lot of men that were also victims of this sex trafficking stuff. So for you guys to just try to highlight that women were hurt in this and just completely ignore the guys that were also hurt in this, to me, is just disingenuous. And I really don't like that our culture has normalized doing that, because it just makes men feel worthless, and I just don't like that whatsoever. And obviously I'm a little bit biased here because I'm a dude, but why do we think that it's okay as a society for us to do that stuff?
This juror who acquitted him of more serious charges said 10 years would have been more appropriate, guys.
Dramatic and difficult trial and sentencing. Aaron, thank you. We appreciate it.
I completely agreed with that. I would have liked to have seen him been in prison for at least a decade, just so he could know and really learn that lesson. It gives him enough time to be able to reflect on his decisions, on his actions, and everything that ended him up in prison. But when you give him 4 years, he's only going to do like 3 of them. Like, he'll be out by 2027, 2028 at the latest. Come on, bro. And we understand at the end of the day that guys like Diddy aren't necessarily subject to the same level of, let's call it, consequences and accountability that every normal person would have been like subject to, because I think guys like Diddy who have money or whatever, the rules just don't apply to them in the same way that it applies to the rest of us. And it's sad, but it's just the reality of the world that we live in, especially in America in this capitalist society. He has the money to be able to pay. It wouldn't really shock me, actually, if he only had to do like another year and a half and he ended up having to pay some hefty fine or whatever. It wouldn't shock me whatsoever. And I don't necessarily know if there's a precedent that's been set in the past of this, but it wouldn't shock me whatsoever if we found out that Diddy was let out in the end of 2026 or something like that. I would not be shocked whatsoever, but I personally would have liked to have seen him be in prison for at least a decade. A decade lets anybody coming after him know, yo, you guys are getting at least a decade. It sets that precedent. Right now, it sets the precedent that, hey, you can do some heinous things, and because you have a history of philanthropy or whatever, which I don't necessarily like when people publicize their philanthropy, because I think it's just tax breaks, if I'm being 100% honest. But if you can say that, oh, I've done a lot of philanthropy, it kind of in some way, shape, or form de facto excuses my bad behavior. I don't necessarily like that whatsoever. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about this entire scenario. Do you think his sentence was appropriate for the crimes that he committed? And how did you guys feel about his reaction, given that he was facing life in prison and he only really got essentially like less than half of a decade? As always, I want to thank you guys for joining me on this video. You guys could have been anywhere else in the world, but you chose to be here with me, and I really do appreciate you. If you liked what you heard today, do me a solid and like the video, share the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. Those things really do help out the channel a lot, guys. And if you didn't like what you heard, thanks for allowing me to occupy your time. Consider leaving a comment in the comments down below, letting me know exactly what it was that you disagreed with, and maybe we could talk about it. Either way, I appreciate each and every one of you guys for pressing play on this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.